Now we jump ahead to Melville, The Human Condition, The Existential Man. This is one of the most influential films in film history, whether people working today know it or not,
because it's influenced them through all of the imitation.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Let's Take 5, the podcast where we look at one of the greats of cinema and discuss their excellence and range. My name is Eric Martindale.
My name's Austin Luger.
And today we are continuing our Jean-Pierre Melville 5 with part 4 on this 5. The previous films we covered were Bob Le Flambeur, Morin Priest, Les Samourai. Today we'll be talking about Army of Shadows, and then after this it'll be Le Cercle Rogue, I think. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't speak French. And, so today we're going to be talking about the Army of Shadows, though. Army of Shadows is a film that takes place in France during World War II and stars a net of spies or resistance fighters against the new Gestapo regime of the Nazis taking over. And basically it's about all these sort of vignettes. I'm probably going to use that term a lot in this podcast, carrying out these specific missions throughout the entirety of the film. This film is supposed to, whether that's achieved or not, we'll talk about it, but it's supposed to be a very palpable suspense that comes with not knowing if each of these vignettes will turn out the way we hope they will. These people are constantly hunted. Obviously, this is a very, very paranoid time, so the paranoia is here as well, and you get to know the characters quite a bit, each of these cast of characters that make up this resistance, so we care about them and we worry about them, and I guess that's kind of a good synopsis here. What do you think about Army of Shadows, Austin?
I adore this movie. This was, this is when I first noticed that Jean-Pierre Melville was in charge of so many films I loved. I kind of happened to come across. It was Army of Shadows. After I finished, I go, who was this guy? And I realized, oh God, of course. It was the man responsible for so many amazing films I've seen. This, to me, is just... obviously I have a perhaps weird affection for Les Samourai. This is perhaps his true masterpiece to me.
It's I think a decidedly better film than Les Samourai. Now, whether or not you enjoy, what do you get the most enjoyment out of? Like what breaks a fun factor meter for you or scratches a certain itch? I can see Les Samourai, but to me, the comparison is Yojimbo to Seven Samurai. Like, you know what I mean? Like to me, this is the Seven Samurai. It's the more rounded, more thicker film.
And it's funny, rewatching it, the director comparison I thought of was, this is his Schindler's List.
I kind of thought Schindler's List too, but go ahead, sorry.
Because it's something, not just because it's a World War II film, but because this is a director who, even with Morin Priest, he is going for entertainment value with kind of really high art. This is him using those skills and that use of editing and color and tone towards a really more difficult tale that is definitely bleaker and more upsetting. It's such a strange film, and I kept watching it last night going, I think Eric might love this a lot. Mm-hmm. So I'm really hoping. We haven't talked about this yet.
Yeah, no, I did like the movie quite a bit. What I didn't like about the film, so we can get this out of the way and talk about what I did, is that each of the individual they're almost like time capsules in the film. You got about 12 to 14 very, very long scenes. That's essentially what the film amounts to. And each scene, they feel slightly disconnected. They don't seem to flow. And I know this seems a really weird thing to say, but it's kind of like how people will say, oh, I love The Godfather 2's flashback sequences, but I don't love the actual story that's happening in present day. This felt like 12 of that. Like, I liked the first, third, fifth, sixth, eighth, and 12th part. It's kind of weird. And that's not actually the opinion that I had. I actually like them all. But the beginning of the film, we go into this this prison, this camp where the Nazis are collecting Poles and Russians and French and everyone into this one little camp, anyone that stood against them. And it feels like that's going to be the movie, like for a while. And then actually 15 minutes later, it's over.
Yeah.
And then you see another scene that's kind of feels unrelated to that scene. And oftentimes you're dropped into the scene without any knowledge of how you got to that point. So each scene almost reads like a different paragraph on a Wikipedia page, where you will get dropped into a scene and you won't actually know where they are or sometimes who the people are. And all of a sudden these people are very important. These very, very important people, but you don't know how yet. And then as the scene is sort of reveals itself, then you know the people, and then you begin to understand the situation. And I don't know if that's always effective, because they seem to not every scene seems to kiss the other scene. They just kind of like, all of a sudden I'm in England for some reason. Like, oh. That's interesting. And then very, very rarely will a scene explain how we got to where we are and stuff like that. And that's I'm not even saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but I did feel the film had about 12 disconnects in a way where I felt like I could have stopped the film about 12 times and come back to it and not feel like I missed anything. And you could almost say that's a good thing. I'm not sure, but I'm just saying it's something that exists.
Absolutely. And it's something that I've only ever seen be pulled off in 2 other spy stories that I'm a fan of. I mean, I'm not an expert on spy stories, but it's something that you see a lot in John le Carré novels, which I'm going to talk about him later, but also in the TV show The Americans. And I think what this and The Americans do so well is that, I mean, essentially they're spies. They're in the world of intelligence. But the way that they have to function, it is always so much more confusing and for everyone involved, especially those who are involved, in fact. Because there's a line about a third of the way through the film when they're in a car to kind of discussing what to do next, and they just sigh and say, there's too few people and too many missions. And what is so affecting about this movie to me, and it's kind of how the Americans function as well, the TV show, in that unlike a movie I do love, Inglourious Basterds, where like that has a very clear objective. If we attack this one place, then the rest will fall. Here is our clear villain. Here's a clear side villain. Here's what we need to defeat. But when you're going after such an abstract thing of an entire regime that is everywhere, you have so many missions, but you have no idea how effective they're going to be. And I love, like especially in the beginning, I loved the disconnect you have, because you're following this guy who ends up being our most main character of the film, Philippe. You just see him being arrested. It's not until he kills a guard and escapes and meets back up with his people do you realize, oh, you're really high up in the resistance.
Well, that's kind of exactly what I'm talking about. Like how the scenes sort of work in this film. How like, whoa, you won't know the people necessarily. You won't even know why you're watching, and then you'll end up figuring that out later. And towards the end, that gets a little less so. But it kind of works like you realize it's like you're going to have too few people, because you can't just say, hey, you're a Frenchman, you love your country, be a spy. Like that's not gonna be how it works, because the way the thing sort of, there's a whole networking thing involved where it's like, well, yeah, all those things are good, but can you actually do this, and can I actually trust you? I mean, in many ways, it ends up working like a mafia.
Sure.
Then yeah, because there's also that thing of, like in a mafia, I could love you, but if you rat against the family or something like that, I mean, I don't know this, I'm not in a mafia, this is your typical way the mafia works, in film. If you rat against the mafia, then there's no strike two. You've done that. You're going to die for that. And that works the same way here. If you're refusing to do a mission or you compromise a mission in any way, you're going to end up dead too, because we can't afford these liabilities, particularly when everything seems so limited. We don't have – because the way the lifeline of a spy works is you don't have much time to complete all you want to do, because on a long enough timeline, and sometimes a very, very short one, eventually you're going to get caught, tortured, and killed. So you have to do as much damage as you can in a very, very limited amount of time while you're still alive.
And there's something about also like the willingness to do the missions. I mean, it obviously is a profound sense of patriotism for these people, but also like it's almost a strange, abstract form of patriotism, because they're trying to create a better France for tomorrow. But in order to do these missions well, ideally they should have no emotional connections whatsoever, because like they keep talking, and then you see repercussions later on in the film of if you have family members, they're going to be in danger as well.
They're targets. Yeah.
And it's just like you're going for it's almost biblical. You're going for a France that you'll never actually get to be part of. Mm-hmm. And that's why this film is very much not a James Bond movie, because their lives are so bleak and so sad and so unrewarding in a way that we typically get from this genre, because you just don't know if you're making a difference. You just kind of have to keep going, even though your comrades fall. You know,
there's a tedium that sets in the film that's not necessarily a negative thing in the film, but there is this. It's more of the grunt work of spying. There's not like this film sort of reads like more like an instruction manual than a very, very like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a word, like a cheesy spy novel.
Sure.
Like it feels more real. Like these are the steps you have to take. You know, these are the things you got to do, and these are the repercussions for them. These people are damaged people, and also the risk you have to take. Like, it's not a question of bravery. It's a question of, no, literally you need to do this. I need to distract the guard, and he's going to shoot at us, and we might die, but like, dude, we got to do this. This is just like what we have to do. You know, if I have to jump out of an airplane at 3 o'clock in the morning all by myself over France, which is my favorite scene in the film, you know, this is what you got to do. This is the life, and everything's done. It's like you remove a part of yourself. You lose the actual consciousness that makes you you. You are just the mission. And I know that sounds just as cheesy as the novel, but that's really how these characters come off. Their personality is that they're a spy. That's it. And that's all they're allowed to have. You know, you can't be in love. You know, you really can't have a family. These things do not make a good spy.
And it's so interesting contrasting with our last film, The Samurai, where that was a movie where it romanticized that isolation and disconnect and made the warrior like that a cool, suave person, whereas this disconnect is always seen as troubling and soul-harming, because, you know, Le Samurai only lives in a world of fiction, whereas these people are just going through realism hell. But you mentioned the airplane scene. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because that almost to me is the most anti-James Bond scene. Right?
Oh yeah. So that's my favorite scene in the film. So you have like he goes to England, and he's in England doing spy stuff. And then he's got to get back to France, and the way he's got to get back to France is he has to parachute in via airplane late at night or in the early morning hours when it's dark. So he's on the plane, and by himself. You know, he's just got to do this. And when you see the guy, if you haven't seen the film before, this isn't like some macho dude. This guy looks like, you know, an accountant. Mm-hmm. You know, so like he's up in the plane, and it's dark, and they start getting shot at, and he's seeing the bombs kind of going off outside the windows and everything, and it's really, really creepy. Like, it kind of has a really creepy vibe to it. And then he's like, okay, you know, you're going to be jumping soon. The guy tells him in the plane, and he goes to sleep. And I'm like, how could someone sleep right now? You're just getting, you know, shot at. You just bombs are going off at you, and you know you're about to jump out of an airplane. You've not done this before. At least it's not been alluded to, and you're going to be all alone. And then I realized, oh yeah, this is like the job. This is the job. I'm going to be alone. I'm going to be hungry. I'm going to be shot at. Eventually, my time will be up. If my time is up falling out of this airplane, then it will be. And just there's this weird amount of tension that I don't feel like Philippe feels that I felt. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, and it's so interesting because, I mean, right before he jumps, it's one of the longest moments of hesitation in the film, aside from another scene I'm going to bring up in a little bit, because it's just like, also, he doesn't want to fucking jump out of an airplane.
Yes, exactly.
Because that is not a thing he wants to do.
Yeah.
But he does, and then Melville frames it in such a wide shot where, like, it again doesn't look cool. It's just like a guy just fell out of the sky.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. He does hesitate before he goes. Like, oh my god, wow, here we go. And then, but he does. Like, the hesitation we're talking about is literally 2 seconds. It feels like a million years because the guy's screaming at him, "Jump, damn it!" You know.
Yeah.
But it was really nice. I really liked that scene. That scene was great. The ending scene was great too. I mean, there were other great parts, but everything feels so distinct again because everything feels so isolated. Each scene feels so isolated from the other, but that one really, really stood out to me.
Well, the other moment of hesitation that I was referring to was, if I had to say my favorite scene, even though it's such a messed up scene, this is a movie that does torture sequences really well because it's so psychological. It's not just Jack Bauer, going crazy and killing 30 people to find out where the nukes are. The one to me that is just so haunting, actually reminded me a bit of the visuals of Stalker, was the I'm talking about already.
Yes, exactly.
The scene where they are, the Nazis have them, instead of just killing them, they want to basically amuse themselves, the Nazis do, by not just having a firing line, but to make them run and just see if they can get them with their machine guns. And there's just that moment.
Well, it's set up like a game.
Yeah.
Like, if they get to the back wall without getting killed, then they promise they will not kill them this time.
Yeah.
Next time they will. So it buys you a day or whatever.
And immediately you just have a guy say, like, we're like, well, we have nothing to lose. And starts running. But our main guy just kind of stands there. And this one is a bit... It's similar to Not When I Jump Out of the Plane, but it's also like, fuck you.
Fuck you, yeah, right.
Fuck
exactly.
you. He just stands longer than he should, and he doesn't know there's a plan in place to kind of help him. But it's like, there's no fucking time to rest, and it's so demeaning in a way. And I mean, it's filmed. I mean, the lighting of this whole movie is incredible. It feels like it was painted on the way these colors look. But once you start to have these smoke bombs go off in that long hallway, and you still don't know what's part of the game and what's not, because the way the Nazis are just like, no, just keep shooting through the smoke. Like, is this just a new bit of amusement for them? And then you realize that there is, an escape for this man, and the part that still haunts him is the whole plan was dedicated on the fact that he would run.
That he would run, right, exactly. And well, first of all, that scene reminded you of the Stalker scene in the room kind of outside the room where the owl flies or the bird flies in the room. And yeah, that's right. I thought it evoked the same feeling for me, too. I think part of it is you're going to these sort of existential, like, dehumanizing things that we were kind of talking about. So the mood is kind of right for it, like, end of the world type feel. So the film ends, because I was talking about the ending, because I was thinking, with these spy movies, it's kind of like a zombie movie. I realize it's like, if there's no big heist you're pulling off, and this is just the life of, the only way it can kind of end is with these characters dying, right? I mean, that's what I was thinking, at least. But no, the capstone of the film is when they have to kill one of their own.
Yeah. Essentially... Again, because they kill it's one of their own, right at the beginning, the guy they strangle.
Yeah, but that guy
we didn't know him.
We didn't know him, right? So like that kind of set, but that's important because that kind of infers the way Philippe is going to handle this situation. I mean, the character's name is Mathilde, and she's risen through the ranks of the spy net, and she's kind of, at this point, sort of the mastermind who saved Philippe in the situation we talked about earlier when they had to run, and from there kind of felt like the second lead or the co-command. But she gets caught, and she ends up to protect her family because she had a family. She ends up giving up some people that are part of their spy net. And Philippe, seemingly very callously, says, well, we got to kill her. We got to liquidate her, is the word he uses. And that's really like, man, this is the life. Because you think on a personal level or in some other time and space, Philippe may actually love her. Mm-hmm. And it definitely tries to infer that. But it's like, man, no, this is the life. And he's like, oh, but she saved you. And he's like, yeah, I know, but she also turned people in. Like she's a leaky boat, man.
Well, and it's not like they're judging her. In fact, there's still a long conversation about what they're going to do because they are all avoiding what they know they should do, and it's just so upsetting because like, well, she's not going to kill herself. Like we know that, which means they're just going to keep torturing her until she says something, and the essentially like the decision has already been made almost in their subconscious. They're just kind of rationalizing their psyches to get to the point of, yeah, we're just going to shoot her.
But Philippe very, very quickly, compared to the other people in the room, very quickly comes to the decision that she has to be killed. I mean, he's the one that's like, he was going to kill one of them because he wasn't going to kill her. And that's when you realize it's like, oh yeah, this probably isn't the life for me.
No, well, and that's, I just kept thinking, this is just a narrow-minded view of history, but, America has romanticized our resistance of the Revolutionary War because we so definitively won. Mm-hmm. Like it is where we have all of those kind of, the great generals end up becoming presidents, and the founding fathers. We just, if we would have lost, it would have been a whole different kind of thing, but like, these guys still end up winning, and yet they all just... There's no statues for these kind of people. Like, they just really gave everything to the noble cause and just died in the street for it.
Yeah. Well, and we know this because the end of the film gives the death dates for every single person left in the film. Yeah. Like, you think... At first I thought, oh, is this going to be like, like the Indigo MASH where we're going to see their faces and the actor that played them, which you see in so many films. But no, it's like, this is saying these, it gives a very similitude to the film too. Like, it's like the somber note of like, oh yeah, all these people died. And some of them fairly late in the war. I think somebody was like January 44. I'm like, damn, man, you're a month away.
Well, and this is based off a book, which is, of someone who was part of the French Resistance, and then it is some fictionalized version.
Fictionalized characters.
Yeah, though. Yeah. So, but I think it's like definitely stories he had heard and kind of known, but just kind of like made them able to see. But I still, like, even knowing this isn't just a completely true story, because it can't be, because every one of these closed rooms is dead by the end.
I was going to say, also by the nature of what they're doing.
Yeah.
You
can't know that.
Exactly. They're spies. Like,
so those title cards just, they hurt,
They do. It reminded me of sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to be like, it gave like a verisimilitude or to the characters and to the story in a way that reminded me of like the Wikipedia page. This is how they ended up. Scroll down the paragraph further. This person died on this day. This person died on this day. This is how they... And it's not just the date they died. It's how they died.
Well, and also you're seeing them... They're all in the car moments after killing their friend. Yeah. So it's not even like... Because typically you get these kind of things in an ironic moment. Spielberg's done this, right? Where you have people celebrating, before, they all get to go home, and then a slow motion goes, this person died in the 70s, yada yada. This is just like, here's one of the worst days of life, and here's where they died. Mm-hmm. Just over and over again. And I mentioned it earlier, so I want to kind of go back to a little bit, just another example of what they're going through, of the first, essentially, torture and killing scene of one of their comrades. I was always just kind of thrown off by the guy who's running that safe house, because they're like, all right, here it is. Here's the guy we all know. We have to kill him. And he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. The gun's too loud. Like that's what he's reacting to. It's not like, hey, man,
we're going to kill somebody.
Let's talk about the philosophy of this. It's more of like, no, we're so undersupplied, we don't have silencers. And these walls are thin. In fact, listen, we can hear a baby crying nearby. And like, oh, God. So they just have to...
And the guy they're going to kill is listening to this entire conversation about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that weirdly, that isn't a torture thing. Like,
no.
That is just...
It's a logistical thing.
They are understaffed, and that is something that comes up so often, just like how little people they have, how little supplies they have. I mean, these people can't take a day off or rest because their home is surrounded by Nazis. And, God, it's
Go ahead.
I mentioned at the top of the episode where, like, it's still Melville he's still using techniques of noir. He's definitely using some of the color palette he was using in late Samourai to kind of show that world. But it's just it just feels so dramatically different. Like it's definitely Melville, and it's also not Melville at the same time, in a really kind of beautiful creation. Yeah,
it's another neat way of making a movie about Nazis that's not a war film necessarily. Mm-hmm. I mean, because it's a spy film. Like it's almost like a different thing. I mean, it's always interesting, and he's done that before because he did it with Morin Priest. So it's just not a spy film, but a film that was about the war and the effects of the war, which I always think is interesting too, just to sort of see a different angle on it and a different narration of the events taking place at that time. And it's interesting too because it's France. It's not Germany. It's not Russia. It's not USA.
So this movie kind of had a new appreciation because when it came out in 1969, it bombed horribly. Because it was essentially the worst time to release a film like this. The Algerian War really did not make French resistance films seem great, as depicted in the film The Battle of Algiers for cinematic context.
Sure.
And so it just kind of bombed, but it just kind of almost was forgotten. Like I was worried that Melville wouldn't be able to had a pause in his career, but no, the Cercle Rogue came out the next year, which is a big hit. But it didn't come to America until 2006. And because of that, the only awards and nominations it ever got as a film were all like American appreciations in 2006. Like it won like a special honor from the National Review and a bunch of critics' choices and whatnot because it was like an undiscovered masterpiece not too long ago.
Yeah, it's posthumously as far as Jean-Pierre Melville's concerned. But I had read about, I mean, it's no secret on here, I love the Great Movies books by Roger Ebert. I believe it's in there.
I think so.
He definitely gave it 4 stars because I read his review afterwards, but I think so. I'm not sure.
I know that a couple of these so far
sorry, I didn't read his review, but I saw his review was 4 stars. I should clarify that.
I did the same thing with those books. I read all the reviews of the movies I had seen, and then kind of like earmarked the ones I haven't watched yet.
Yeah, and I can't remember, but I feel like it might have been in there, which that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So.
Any final thoughts on Army of Shadows?
Yeah, I thought it was that was a good film. I think that a very good film. I'd say it's a hard film for people that don't watch a lot of foreign films because of the way the film unfolds. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of there's a lot of voiceover, which is hard with foreign films because sometimes you don't know who's speaking.
Sure.
There's a lot to comprehend when you have to continually restart each thing, and not that I watch like an incredible amount of foreign films, but I've seen quite a bit at this point, and I thought that I wondered if that would be a struggle to someone who's new to watching foreign films. And I may be completely wrong about that, but there is a comprehension that comes into play that's an obstacle you don't ordinarily have when you're seeing films in English. So that's one thing I thought of. It's not even a negative mark. It's just, after all, it's not their fault I don't speak French.
No.
So
I'll stick with my, I don't know if it's for people who don't like foreign films or not used to foreign films or not, I'm just going to stick with my early comparisons where if you like the TV show The Americans or films like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, just that kind of the complete awfulness of being a spy. This is the best of that subgenre, I think. So, but next week we have something that is more fun to watch. Because we have Cercle Rogue, where Melville is returning back to his high sensibilities and reteams with the Samourai himself, Alain Dion. So join us next week for the review of that. Until then, you can leave us a comment at theartamora.com. You can follow us on Twitter at the Immortals Pod. We got an email address, let's take 5 at theartamora.com. Leave us a review on iTunes. Helps people find us. That's really great. And also at the website, we have things like the Immortals podcast, which actually is taking this week off because I traveled and I didn't have time to record an episode, basically. But next week we'll be back with a review of Kind Hearts and Coronets, John Lennon's Imagine, and the Rockford Files. Also check out Ad Absurdum, which is a podcast where the pop culture legal team talk about the real-life legal implications of fictional films. I was just talking with them today about scheduling their next episode, but I'll let that be a secret. But it is timely to February, so get excited for that. In fact, especially timely to today. That's too much of a giveaway now. Where can we find you, Eric?
You can look for me at Constant Diversion. That's my YouTube channel. I'll be on there.
Cool. So thank you all for listening, and we'll be back next week. My name is Austin Luger.
My name's Eric Martindale.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.